I'm Gwen Baumgardner coming to you from the Straight Arrow News Studios in Omaha. Today we're continuing the debate over Florida's new Don't Say Gay legislation, just signed into law by Governor Ron DeSantis. I'm joined by liberal radio host Rashad Richey and conservative podcaster Eleanor Krasne. Now, before you two get into it, a quick recap. Officially, it's called the Parental Rights and Education Bill. It goes into effect this summer. And what it's meant to do is forbid instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity in kindergarten through third grade in, I quote, a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. Rashad, I'll let you start off. Do you take any issue with this new legislation?
I take complete issue with this legislation. It is insane. It is improper. But Republicans are really great at creating boogeymen. Boogeymen are fictitious. They don't exist. They're not real. You know who is not leading this movement? School teachers, because school teachers said this is not a problem in our classrooms. School administrators not leading this issue. And you don't have elected school board members leading this issue, at least not in the majority sense. So let's be very clear about the bill. The bill creates a regulatory agency without creating a regulatory agency, because the bill allows parents to sue over curriculum they may disagree with. And the language is so vague in the context of the bill that it is likely unconstitutional based on historic constitutional rulings.
All righty, Rashad, Ellie, what's your response to that? Obviously, this is a very heated topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. And also, thanks for establishing what the bill actually says. The reason why we're not hearing a lot of pushback from teachers and educators is that I think everyone with us this afternoon can agree that it is not appropriate to be discussing sexuality or sexual orientation with young children in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, unless there is a compelling or specific reason to do so, which is what the bill actually says. And I think we can all get behind. Rashad mentioned earlier that Republicans have created a boogeyman that doesn't exist. I want to just gently push back on that for a second and say that I think for a long time, conservatives and Republicans have been the boogeyman. But in fact, I think this bill demonstrates that a lot of everyday Americans agree with legislation like this and doing something as simple as protecting our children and protecting parents' rights.
So I want to move on. The one element of this legislation, and Rashad, you mentioned this, is that it gives parents the right to sue school districts over some of these violations. So Ellie, is that reasonable? Why is it important to loop in the parents and the lawyers?
Absolutely. So I can't speak to the constitutionality of it. I think the courts will ultimately determine that. If I had my druthers, and I think even lawyers would agree with this, we would keep lawyers out of things as much as possible. But I think it's important to bring parents into this because parents play obviously an integral role in child rearing and forming the moral, political, and cultural imaginations of individuals within a family, as well as within a community. If for whatever reason a very young child has questions about sexuality or sexual orientation, those things are best addressed, or most likely best addressed in the home, not something that's done within a public school.
Rashad, quick rebuttal.
They know good and damn well this is unconstitutional. And here's why. Creating a law with this level of vague context and content is surely going to be stricken by the court. Even Governor DeSantis himself, in an earlier conversation about this, talked about the need for government to stay out of these matters and that it should be decided at home, which is a libertarian idea, which is connected somewhat to the governor. He has now done an about face, once again, creating legislation for a problem that does not exist, according to educators. I'm a former high school teacher myself in the school system, and I know that this is something that's not on the radar. Allow it to be handled by the local individuals who have been elected by the local community to handle these matters on a regular basis.
Well, then my last prompt for both of you, Disney. So not a part of the Florida public school system, but it's facing some pretty big fallout over its response or really initial lack thereof. You know, does politics belong in the Magic Kingdom? Rashad, I'll kick it over to you. We've been talking about the schools, but now what about Disney?
Well, let's talk about Disney and their responsibility to the community at large, and other companies apply. 88% of Americans now say that they care if their company is socially responsible and civically engaged. That means in order to be relevant in this era, you must have some level of connection between the culture of your company and the culture of the values around it. So I think it is not only fair play. Corporations have always played politics. It's just now the rabbit has the gun, so to speak, and conservatives don't like it.
Ellie, what about you? Do you think that Disney should be involved in this kind of political warfare?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So Rashad mentioned earlier that a company has, I think, an obligation to engage with the values and the culture of its community or its customers. I agree with that wholeheartedly, but what's at stake here is the best way for a company to do that. I'm reminded of a Milton Friedman essay from the 1970s in which Milton Friedman said, and I'm paraphrasing, that the responsibility of a company is to create value for its shareholders. And as long as it's doing that without coercion or deception, then it's fair game. Disney would be better off engaging with the values and the culture of everyday Americans by continuing to produce the incredible family-friendly entertainment that it's known for and not weighing in on these social wedge issues. Unfortunately, Disney's recent response is just one more example of woke capitalism that we've seen a lot of in Hollywood and the media and woke Wall Street. I would encourage these companies to focus on what they do best, which is creating products and services that serve their consumers.
Allow me to rebuttal very quickly. The
Go ahead.
NFL became woke. They broke all their revenue records. Coca-Cola became woke. They broke revenue records last year. And Disney becoming woke, so to speak, now will likely break revenue records this year. We can have this conversation again in 2023. That's how you benefit shareholders.
Well, I want to thank you both for your time, for your candor. This bill, it's been signed into law. It'll go into effect this summer. So we will kind of see the fallout this upcoming school year. But thank you both. We'll talk soon.